The general agenda is go through a little bit of the background of core and my role, then into the meat of it, which is looking at some of the new features of CRM. It's not a whole set, but I've picked 4 major ones. These cover some things from the user side, from the essential integration side with an Office and mobile, and also a little bit around the sort of the project and the implementation side, which means we can run implementation projects more efficiently, which just helps everybody there. And then the general wrap-up. I prefer to do questions and answers at the end, otherwise it can get a bit chaotic handling questions as we go through. So I'll have a bit of time at the end if you have any questions on any of these topics. I showed you the slide on core's expertise. I don't think I need to say much more on that. And the CRM side, again, we have been working with CRM for, as you can see there, since 2004. I was partway through my role, so essentially I am responsible for all aspects of CRM delivery, essentially making sure that our customers get what they expect and what they're paying for from the CRM project. So that's partly technical aspects, making sure the project runs effectively, and also developments in terms of looking in the future for what's coming with new versions, how we're essentially making sure we're continuing to work with the best practice. A point worth mentioning on this slide is I mentioned integration work towards the top, that most CRM projects are not completely standalone, but what we consider a CRM project often involves integration with other systems, whether they're back office systems like a finance system, websites, but also the integration with any other technology such as mobile and email and so on. So there's a whole set of other areas that fit under the CRM cap, I suppose. So that was just a little bit of scene setting, but the main content is going to be looking at each of these new features. So I've picked 4. First one, it makes sense to start with this because it's where we necessarily begin going around CRM. CRM 2016 is now the version 8 strictly of CRM, so it's evolved quite a lot over time. The user interface has effectively been very similar since CRM 2013, which is version 6. Prior to that, it had a different size. If you're used to CRM prior to CRM 2013, you'll see the user interface is quite different from what you're used to. What I'm concentrating here is just some of the changes from CRM 2015, but there's a little bit more to describe there. So for these are some of them may seem relatively trivial, but they do make quite a significant difference. So I'll give you a demo in a few minutes. The major side is some of the navigation area. Microsoft have an interesting consideration as to how much you're focusing on using CRM as an application using a desktop computer or laptop, full-size screen, or whether we're looking at the mobile side. Some of the changes Microsoft had made have been maybe a little too focused on the mobile, which meant the navigation structure was maybe not ideal for some structures on desktop. And we'll see that those have now been improved in terms of moving your way around CRM. This makes most sense if you take an approach like I commonly do, where I'm using essentially all aspects of the CRM application and having to move around quite a lot. A lot of users actually focus on just 1 or 2 areas, in which case things work in a fairly similar way. They don't have to move around so much. However, features like the recently viewed items and being able to pin items is still a very useful way just to make sure people can get to what they need to very quickly. There's also an improvement around the form navigation, moving up and down there, which I'll show you. So the navigation improvements will be the area of my demo here. Logos and themes, must be said, we've not done this for any customers yet, but it has been asked for in the past, is that there's quite a lot of a facility to change the look and feel now of CRM. Previous versions you were essentially stuck with a Microsoft colour scheme or Microsoft structure, and there was a facility to change that. And there is what I really call a new user interface within Dynamics CRM. That's something which is called the Interactive Service Hub, and its purpose is for people whose role essentially is continual case management. This is case from a managing service. So service calls coming in, managing cases, and associated entities such as knowledge base. That's optimized in terms of the speed and the view aspect, but it is currently limited to just those entities. In reality, I think the best way to consider that is this is an alternative interface which is probably going to become more widespread as CRM evolves and into next versions. But rather than Microsoft doing a wholesale change now, this is something that's being brought in. I wouldn't say it's a trial, it's beyond that, but essentially there's the opportunity for Microsoft to learn from what's happening in the Interactive Service Hub before it's made available into the other areas. So if you see the Interactive Service Hub, that's essentially an alternative interface. But it does give an idea of some of the changes that will be happening in the future. So let's have a quick scoot around on this. So if I move to a CRM implementation, for the nature of doing these presentations, I have to keep my resolution relatively low, just to make sure that it works effectively. So hopefully this is visible and works well. I typically have a slightly higher resolution, but I've lowered this down now. So if we look at this, this is a CRM user interface which has been fairly similar since CRM 2013. I say if you had previous versions, it would look a little bit different to that. First area of improvement is coming into looking at the different areas. This is we've got the sales side. So if I look at this is my main navigation area. Previous versions, then this was a set of larger blocks that rolled off to the right. Even in this resolution, it does a little bit. But this allows me to have the different sub-areas such as the customers, sales, and so on, and then navigate to each of these areas very quickly. So there's a grouping which you're seeing on the vertical side, and then we can also potentially scroll across if we need to. So that's a navigation. Generally, if you're used to what you got in CRM 2013 or 2015 before update 1, then I think you might find that this is a huge improvement of just a means to get to different data. So I can very easily go to, for instance, my accounts. I'm afraid I'm often looking at my accounts, I don't own very much. So that's a common navigation structure that we have just to very easily get across, and also if we go to different work areas here, and then I can get, for instance, if I want to be going into marketing, I can immediately see the different marketing areas and go to any of those, or go to the service side. There's a much quicker way just to navigate through CRM. Another change we have is the most recently viewed. So this is one where we can see various places that I've been. So currently I've not configured this. This has just been from my running through my demos this morning of just the different views I've been looking at and some of the different products. So this splits into two main areas, one of which is the views being a view of multiple records, so based on an entity. So I've just recently looked at my active accounts and active accounts. That's where I was just a few seconds ago. Different views for opportunities. So these are the different entity types, and then views within those. I've also previously been looking at orders and quotes and products. So these are ones which essentially evolve. So that's just what I've most recently viewed. If I want to keep that there, I can just pin this. So pinning any views, I'll just make it always available within the structure. Same applies for individual records. Just before I started this, I was just moving around between a few of the dashboards, but I was also looking at various, in this case, these different opportunities. So again, I can pin these. And if I want to navigate to any of those records, then I can just come in and just go straight to that record. I'm afraid I always try and set my demos up so everything's there and immediately available. It always takes just a few seconds when you first come in. So this is now the main entity form. If you're used to CRM 2013 or 2015, this will look very similar. If you're used to versions prior to CRM 2013, it will be looking very different. So if I just give a quick overview for some of those prior to CRM 2013, The ribbon that we had at the top has changed to this structure, which just shows the most common buttons and essentially more commands across there. This is editable in the same way that the ribbon was editable in previous versions, so it's very easy to configure there. It just takes up a little bit less space. We have a status bar essentially at the top where we can put in certain fields, so when I scroll that's just going to remain as there. Again, something that will be new to you if you're not aware of CRM 2013 and onwards is the idea of business process flows. I'm not going to go into these in a lot of detail here as they came out with CRM 2013, but these allow us to define various stages, see various fields in here, and it's a very quick way to navigate through the different aspects of the entity that you need as you go through. This can cover different entities, so you can have a business process that starts as a lead, continues into an opportunity. We do have a few enhancements in CRM 2016 for the business process side. I've not really included them in this, but if you've got any questions at the end, then feel free to ask. Then we're on to the main form. This, again, if you're used to previous versions, there's more options in terms of layouts and columns and controls. The main one I want to just pick out from CRM 2016 is the different form sections. A drawback that we got when we moved to the CRM 2013 interface was we lost the facility to easily navigate up and down the form. But what I've got here is, this is a navigation structure which allows me to move down product line items, as you can see, further down the form, and I can navigate through to different areas here very quickly. Only really makes a difference if you've got very large forms, but sometimes we do, and that's the way that works. So that was just a quick look at the navigation. You'll see me doing that and using the same navigation structure as I go through the next few demos. But just as a general, using it, it's one of those that saves a few seconds here, a few seconds there, but that all adds up over time. So moving on to next topic. So this is ones which are, I suppose, more involved using of CRM. So integration with different Microsoft Office products. We can split these into three different areas really. Excel and Word templates is one, the email type interaction is another, and then integration with other Office products is the third sort of bucket we can describe here. So we'll start Excel and Word templates. CRM, essentially, since it came out, has levels of integration with Excel and Word. Both of those mostly to get data from CRM into the respective product, Excel or Word, and from the Excel side to then potentially manipulate the data and bring it back in. However, there have been limitations of that in the previous versions, and with CRM 2016, the Excel and Word templates is essentially new functionality that adds quite a lot that we didn't have previously. So I'll give you a demo of both the Excel and the Word, so we'll see what happens. But if I describe that in a bit more detail first, the Excel templates, you create a template, so the template creation is within Excel, so you're manipulating data in Excel. Typically what you do with this is you start with an export of data from the view to get a very simple Excel worksheet, and then within Excel we then add on anything else you might be adding, pivot tables, calculations, whatever you need. So it's intended if you're wanting to take data out from CRM for analysis in Excel. One argument is that you normally do your manipulation data in CRM, but in reality a lot of people like using Excel, so we've got this facility. So you can configure the template, store the template in Excel. So you've created a template, added your pivot tables, charts, whatever you want. You can install that and then just export data as you need to automatically populate the sheet based on this template. These can also be used for data modification as well. So if you're exporting to Excel, maybe because you're going to be doing bulk operations on multiple records, autofill and so on is still a lot faster in Excel than sometimes in CRM if you've got a lot of records to change. So we've got that facility. Overall, the editing was there, but we didn't previously have the facility to store the actual further analysis, such as pivot tables. Word templates are used for what I generally call output documents. Classic example would be a quote, for instance. So you've got information about a quote in CRM, you want to send that as a document to a customer. Prior to CRM 2016, there was some aspects of mail merge with Word, but Microsoft had a very specific mechanism for quotes which allowed you to work with line items and data within that. But anything else, essentially you were just looking at one record. So information about an account, yes, you could have an account summary, but if it didn't show you related records like opportunities or cases, was not really very useful. Whereas now we have templates we can create, so it works off related records, child records, parent records, and many-to-many. I'll give an overview of how that works. This means it's very useful for that sort of parent-child type data to generate, let's say, what we'll call output documents, quotes, orders, and so on. In the past, we've had various ways to generate that, these sort of documents. One option has been using reports, which is quite an effective mechanism. Unfortunately, though, the actual editing of reports is more the development activity, so there's essentially an overhead of maintaining and changing these. There are also third-party add-ins that could be used, but that's another additional cost. Whereas now we're finding with these Word templates that there's a lot more that users can manage on either personal templates or system-wide, which are going to allow you to edit the data, generate documents from CRM data very effectively. There is still one limitation of Word template, but essentially it's you're working on a record, so for instance an account, a quote, and so on. But it still gives you a lot of options. So I'll show you a demonstration of Word and Excel templates in just a few minutes. Just before that, I'll talk about the other items on this slide. CRM, one of the advantages of Dynamics CRM, because it's a Microsoft product, it's always had a lot of interaction with the email side, both in terms of the Exchange on the server side and Outlook from the client side. So that's still there, and now I suppose an increasing number of options in terms of the integration between CRM and Outlook or Exchange. Two specifics to mention for CRM 2016. One I've not put on the slide, which is integration with the Outlook app. So previously you'd need the full Outlook client if you wanted CRM integration, but we now hook into the Outlook app. Another one which is useful for certain people is the tracking side. What we have to consider is that different users interact with CRM emails in many different ways. We have the normal model prior to CRM 2016 would be that users would choose which emails to track, essentially on a per email basis. So it's a selective operation, which is reasonably effective in the Outlook client, but it was limited within the to be within the Outlook desktop client. What we have in CRM 2016 is an additional option which we can configure, which is to allow you to track an email just by putting it into a folder, and we can configure different folders to relate to different entities within CRM. So for instance, if you have a salesperson who's working on, say, just a set of 5 opportunities as their main activity, they could create a separate folder within their mailbox, one for each opportunity, and configure each folder to link it to the corresponding opportunity record in CRM, and then just drag the emails for a particular opportunity into that opportunity folder, and then that to get automatically put in. Especially if you're working in the mobile type environment, that can be a very effective mechanism. So just giving further options for the email integration. Our final area here is various settings. What we'll find with CRM 2016 is some of the integration, especially about relating to Office 365, is relating to CRM Online in the first instance. So features we have is Delve, which is used for search in conjunction, searching of documents across SharePoint, across OneDrive for Business. Then we have integration there, so essentially we can put delve search within a CRM dashboard. OneDrive for Business, that's an alternate. So with CRM, if you're wanting to store documents, we can store documents within the CRM database itself, or more commonly within SharePoint folders. We've now got an extension, but OneDrive for Business is an alternate third option there. And we've also got level of integration with OneNote as well, which one of our consultants is very happy with, as that's his main tool for managing information. So there's a set of these ongoing integration side. So again, let's give you a demo. So looking at the templates, so Word and Excel. So I'll first off demonstrate just how the templates look with a couple of existing ones, and then just see how quickly we can put those up. So if we just move back to our Open Opportunities view, I really wish I didn't get that error. Sorry about that. So let's go back to my Open Opportunities view. For Excel, you're generally working on using this to manipulate multiple records. So I'll show you one of the built-in ones, which is a nice one for pipeline management. So selecting which template, this is working off the data in my existing view. So if I want to work on Open Opportunities, I select the Open Opportunities view, and here we go. And this is then going to open up a reasonably complex template here. So if we just come back down, so what you have at the bottom is the data that's come from CRM. So the way this one's been set up is we have various opportunities. So these are topics, the probability. So this table here is populated directly from the CRM data. So a whole set there. And then within this, we've got a set of various charts that have been set up. So for pipeline opportunities. I'm afraid I don't have the largest set of data here, so they're not the most exciting charts, but we don't get a lot of extra space anyway with this sort of demo structure. One slight quirk, if you look through this, is just the way that some fields get mentioned there. This is quite a useful one to be aware of, is we have this structure, but internally then we have additional columns that CRM creates, which are the ones which are not to modify, which are used to track the changes. So that's why when we see some of these names, it's slightly odd. That's just a quirk of how this template was set up. Normally you'd have a more sensible name. So that's a very easy structure, and we've got this template. We can just, anytime we want to, select a view of data in CRM, populate from that, and we've got the data here. So that was looking through at a very simple example of using an Excel template. If I go for a Word template, so Word templates, I think I'll go for, actually, let's go back to one of my opportunities. So I have one of my opportunities tracked here. The reason I've selected this one is just because it's got some products associated with it. So I do have a product line item associated with my opportunity. So this one just happens because of the way I've got my various buttons structured. It's on the more commands. Here's my Word templates. So again, I'll use an existing one, which is my opportunity summary. So this is working off this opportunity, opening up Word, and here we see fairly basic formatting, I'm afraid, but hopefully we can pick out the main aspects. I'm afraid the rendering with this resolution is not quite so great. If we just expand this, zoom in a little bit. So here's some information that's picking out, so effectively everything that's just in bold is data that's come from CRM. Didn't have a lot of extra information in my description and so on, but if I just scroll along, here I've got my table which is showing you my products. In this case I didn't actually put an extra description on the product, which I should have done, but at least it shows you we've got this tabular data, and if I had multiple products, then I'll be seeing multiple products in this table, and then I'm doing my various summary data and so on. So hopefully you can see from this is a very useful way to build up the type of document that you might be using as a quote or something else. So that's an example there. Just taking you back to how we set these up. So as we're on the Word template now, let's take you through the setup process. When we do templates, we can set up system ones which are available to all users. So when I had the Word templates here, I had a list there. You can also set up personal templates. What I'll do here is set up a personal template. Personal ones can also be shared with other users. But if I want to create a Word template, then just my standard one, it's a Word template. It's necessarily based on one of the entities, but we've got the whole set here, so I'll stick with opportunity for now. There's two sets to doing the setting up the template. The first is to create the template document in Word or Excel itself, and that's what I do first. Then once I've done that, I'll upload. So the first stage is to come in and take the select entity option. This then prompts us to say, well, what data do we actually want in there? This, because I've picked an opportunity, entity does seem quite complex. Essentially what it is saying is, yes, we've got information on the opportunity, the topic, I know, estimated revenue, close date and so on, but we also have a whole set of related data that we could work off. So for instance, the 1 to N is when I've got child records off the opportunity, and the important one here, I see at the bottom, is my product opportunities. So this will allow me to include in that any products that are linked to my opportunity. I can also link the other way. So an opportunity is linked, for instance, to an account. So if I want to get information about the account, maybe more information about the address of the account manager and so on, I can pick that out. And similarly many other relationships there. Can also work off many-to-many relationships. One opportunity can be linked to multiple competitors, so if I wanted to include that information, I could put that in. For now, I'll just put in the select just a couple of options, and then download template. So what this will do is it generates a Word document and just puts a timestamp off that to identify it. And I just need to move things around. So I just need to edit this. I've just realised that I am going to actually suffer a little bit with my screen for moving from Word. So let's make sure we enable everything. Sorry. So now I've got my document there. So this is a blank document. It goes up to me to create the content. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of typing and so on. The important part is just how it hooks the CRM. You have to enable the developer part of the ribbon. If you just have a standard Word install, you won't have to actually need to enable the developer. If I come to developer, there's nothing that's specific to CRM, but what it uses is one of the features within Word, which is XML mapping. So what this does is it's a way of working with structured data which can work on many levels. And if I come across here, there are certain things that's Word specific, but then I get down into opportunity, and then the opportunity is giving me these are all the fields from CRM. For better or worse, this is listing all the fields, and it is listing the schema name, which is the internal representation of these fields. So if you're using this, you do need to have a certain understanding of the actual fields themselves. But essentially, I can be looking at all of these. So for instance, obvious ones like the name of an opportunity. And what I do from here is I just insert, it's called a content control. This is again using Word functionality and just putting in essentially a field. So that will then be populated using the name there. So that's picking out all of those fields, but also I just want to show you the relationships as well. So if I come down towards the bottom here, I have an expansion, so my product opportunities. So these are every product that is linked to an opportunity. Information you have about a product will be a description, a quantity, I'll see down here, price per unit, and each of those. So those are the values in here. If I'm going to be doing this, I won't take you through the whole structure, but what you'd normally do is create a table, and then you have an option when you're creating content, you create what's called repeating content. So all that will do is create a row for each of these records. So that's the structure within the product opportunities. Also, just for completeness, I had linked from the opportunity to the parent account. So this is the customer in this case, and then I can pick out information, I know the account number, the address information of the account, and then I can also use those in that structure. So that's how we set this up. The rest of it is just essentially formatting and putting things in. We can put in images, for instance, if we said we've got logos we want to put in. Then we have an entity image. So we've got pictures we can put. There's quite a lot of formatting available there. So once we've done that, as I say, I won't take you through the actual structure itself and show you typing it. We then just come back in here and come back in, div templates, and then we take the other option, which will be to upload our document. So once we've uploaded that, that's set up our template. Let's just take you through an equivalent one from the opportunities. So if I come back to my opportunities, the Excel templates. The Excel template structure works slightly differently because what you do is you would almost always be starting from some data. So if I create an Excel template, I'll be again picking my entity, picking the view that I'm working off. In this case, at this point is when I specify which columns I'm going to be including in here. So this is the data that I'll be getting out. So it's a slightly different structure. This is your standard view that we have. So just add our columns here. So adding in any columns. Just give it a few seconds. And this also allows, with the Excel templates, it allows us to get information from parent records. So for instance, in this case, the account record might be an example or campaign that it came from as necessary. Then what we do is we do the download. So what this will do is it will run and pick out, and so do an initial output here of the data. And putting in the structure, and then here we can just edit this as we need to. So we've got some existing data, and then I can insert and pivot table. Sorry, I'm clicking ahead too fast. Let's start again. I have a table called Table 1, which is where it references that, and create a quick pivot table, pivoting, close date. So very quickly put together my pivot table, and just need to save this. What you do is a two-step process. So you save it initially onto, let's put it on the desktop. And then I come back into here. Second stage off here is upload, and now I can just upload my quick opportunities. That uploads this into CRM. This is stored as a personal document template. So there's information in here. This is just some basic information about the entity itself. So that's the structure. You can deactivate if you don't want them to be used, but that's all I need there. So that's brought that information in, and if I come back to my open opportunities, Depends on how this refreshes. So sometimes it doesn't immediately see. You may just need to refresh the page. So I'll just give that the page for it to then pick out the new template, and you can see here I've got my personal Excel templates. So that's your structure for setting up the different templates, and it's very much intended to be a user managed process rather than something that needs a developer to come across and update. It's fine for the first step, but you're very likely to want to change them subsequently. So if I just switch back. Mobile integration. So it's my third new topic, is working with mobile devices, so phones and tablets. CRM has gone through a few iterations of different support for these devices. The model that we're now working with CRM 2016 is essentially using primarily the same interface and then just defining which functionality is available offline, sorry, not offline, in the mobile client, such as on a form, do we want to have all the components or just part of these? But what we also get is quite a few new controls on which work for phones and tablets. So the control is a way of representing the data. Two main types. One of these is used to replace your lists or grids, and there's a calendar control. So for instance, appointments is the classic example. Then we can use calendar control to represent a set of appointments or anything else that's got a date field associated with it, rather than just using the grid views, and that's available there. We also get graphical controls on the forms themselves. So although you can do quite a lot, you can just use text, then there's controls that are optimized more for touchscreen type device. So some of these, there's quite a lot around the numerical aspects. I'll show you a couple of examples of these, but also different ones for autocomplete, for instance, on text as an example. So we have the facility to put that on. We specify down at, yes, what entities what we're making available, but also which parts of a form. So if you're using a normal desktop, you might have a full form, but you might have only render certain aspects of that if you're on a smaller form factor. Something else that you can do, which you weren't able to do previously, is combine information. Microsoft uses the term mashup here, where you have information on an entity form, for instance, an account. You might want to have a map of where they are, which you can put into an iframe, so way of showing external content. That's now something that's available within the mobile client, and the reactive design. So essentially, it accommodates, works well with the different resolutions. So that's part of it in terms of actual using of the devices. Development support, because you're going to be using, or if you're creating things for people to use offline, we need to at least be able to see what's happening. There's a preview mode, so if I'm developing a form and I want to see what it can look like in a mobile or phone, then there's a preview to show that. There's also a little bit more scripting support we didn't have previously. So essentially being able to manipulate the new controls, we have some extra tools there. So if I, again, take you through a look at this. So what I'll show you here is taking you into the customization area. So this is now me working at somebody essentially setting up the mobile side. And I just have this is the main area where I work for doing my customizations. So just give me a second to come in here. So what we can show is, let's have a look at the opportunity form. First important thing to note is CRM has had support for what are called Mobile Express forms, which goes back to CRM 2011, which is a fairly simple form, and there is a Mobile Express. But what we're doing with the new functionality is we're using the main opportunity forms and then just deciding what information is made available onto my tablets or my mobile phone. So if I come in and look at this, so this is me coming in designing the form. So this is our main form designer, which always takes a few seconds to load. So this is what I normally use to manage my form. if I look at one of the fields, let's pick a numeric field because that has a few more options. And if I look at the properties of that field, this is the new aspect where we've got controls. So within the controls, by default, this is just the label and text box. The user will just type in the numbers. We have the facility to add various controls. So I picked the numeric ones because it's got various settings there. So we've got ones we can rotate around, we can put lines, sliders, number inputs with plus minuses, various examples, and just gives you a few options as to how we go out. So I can change the way that control works, and then depending on what the control is, I need to specify what the minimum maximum. So for instance, if it's a radial knob, when I'm adding a range, what is that? So minimum, and when I'm putting in the minimum, it could be based off some static values. It could also be linked to a particular field. So for instance, it could be that the budget amount's got to be, the minimum could be is another field on the form, and picking across it. This is just working off data on that entity itself, but it still gives you quite a lot of actual values there. But I could just have this as going, our budget amount's got to be at least somewhere between that number and and then what values it can actually step up in. So effectively, because if you're doing this sort of right, you probably don't want it to end up on a very small number, right? So that's just our range in which it works. So that's how you can set this up, and then just be specifying, well, which is it going to work for the different phones, tablets, and so on, how will that work. So we can set up that structure. We have similar types of controls as well. So depending on the type, say the numeric are the main ones. If I look at text ones, there's options for autocomplete. So it could be just selecting from a range, probably not useful for a title here. Also input mask. Again, I'll probably pick the wrong field here. But for instance, if I'm doing a phone number, then I can be putting in particular formatting across that. It's a very useful feature. So if I have an input mask, I won't complete it, but I just specify the match and the format that it's going to work across there. So we can set those up. So that's our facility there. Then we build this. We can then preview this within my preview option. I now have options both for the desktop client but also the mobile client. So this is one of my developer tools for looking at a tablet or looking at a phone. It does restrict it to certain resolutions, so we're not getting the whole completely configurable set, but it is a pretty good one to pick out. When I do this, it does have essentially a renderer. I'll start this, however, it does take it a while. It's not one which is best suited for a demo. In terms of, it does actually populate, and it will populate this, but it does have to do a little bit of setup first. But essentially, it will be building a form and allowing me to see this once it's actually gone through and set up. What it does have to do is effectively set up what would be running within. I think this was a tablet I chose. And you can toggle between the platforms. Is it going to be a tablet or is it going to be on a phone? So you just get a good idea of how things are going to look there. I won't sit and wait for this because it often takes a bit of time, so I'm afraid I'll leave it there. So there's just a quick setup. The other aspect on here, if I just go back to my solution, is we control for the different entities which ones are going to be available. So are they available for mobile, and whether or not they're editable or just read-only. If they're not available for mobile, then I just won't get the options such as the preview options across there. So I should come back to my presentation. So that was a quick idea of the mobile side, but essentially with CRM 2016 you're getting a much richer interface to manage the data within the mobile client. And I'll very quickly finish off with something that's a bit more technical now, I suppose. Really, in the immediate future, it's more helping us who do implementation, but that necessarily helps in terms of the ease of implementation and also ongoing work. So if I give just a quick scene setting here, typically when doing a CRM project, we'll have various environments set up, a development environment, test environment, maybe training and so on, and live environment. So, and as we go through, we have a very iterative approach. We'll be making changes, deploying them for the various super users to test, give us feedback, make changes, and that's a very, normal part of an implementation project. Is we have a lot happening, and then we get very rapid feedback. We make a rapid change, whether it's to add new fields, move things around a form, add views. We do that essentially within CRM itself, and then deploy changes across. So we have a very frequent deployment of changes. I mean, it is not unusual to be deploying changes daily or twice weekly between the different environments as we make those changes. There's also consideration as to what happens after you've gone live. For instance, doing something like adding a field, changing some option set values is something that you may have certain people who would be managing that on the fly. You don't need to necessarily go through a full development, test and life cycle. So we need to do that. There's a good mechanisms in CRM, but it's for management. Solutions are the terms that we use in CRM, and that's how we deployed. But we did have certain issues with that, especially once we went live. I think it's probably easiest if I just move on to the next slide, which gives us a bit of the issues and improvements. CRM always had an idea of managed solutions when we control what is actually modifiable once you've deployed in a live environment, and unmanaged, which effectively allows all level of changes subject to the appropriate permissions. Managed solutions were always a very good idea, but they did have certain problems. I know that, for instance, third parties who create add-ins have struggled a lot with the managed solutions. They allow you to uninstall components and give some good version management, but they did have some issues. You also found yourself having to essentially deploy things at an entity level. So if I've made a change to the account, even just adding a field, I have to deploy the whole of that, which might override some other form changes. CRM 2016, essentially all of our main problems have been solved. We've got dependency issues are sorted. There's a very good what's called patches. So when we deploy things, if we're deploying, say, 2 updates a week, we can do each as an individual patch and just very easily roll back to a previous version. It makes that process a lot simpler for us. And also we can deploy right down to an individual field. For instance, so just adding a field, all I need to do is deploy that field rather than a whole entity. So that's there. I'm afraid that's very much a high-level overview, but given that's what we spend a lot of our time doing, customizations, we do have some very good tools now which work, and does mean that overall our processes for managing both the implementation and also, if I just scoot back, the ongoing work, so deciding which entities, which fields, and so on can be modified direct and live, which ones have to go through a fuller dev test process. We've got a full set there. That does just help make our life easier, plenty makes things, takes less time, and generally makes the implementation a lower cost overall. Not really much I can demonstrate on that, but we're coming towards the end of my timings. So next things, if you want to know more about Core and CRM, we have a seminar in London. Our marketing department will give you more details about the whens and the timings. This is on the 12th of May. This is looking at a larger sort of size of running through the sales and marketing and what CRM can give you. So the effective marketing within CRM. So it's CRM itself, but also some of the other integrations that work there. So we've got some of the ones listed there. So if you want more information on that, then please contact our sales and marketing people, and they'll be happy to give you that. And if you do go there, I'll probably see you in person. Otherwise, thank you for this, and if you have any questions, then feel free to ask.